I wanted to start with something about the way that you think, because one thing I've noticed, I've done 18 years online now, since '94. One thing I've noticed is everybody has a different approach to how to do their business online. Every individual, every company, and whilst it might be tweeting for one, blogging for another, videos for another, everybody is different. The first state is institutional thinking is closed, selective, and controlling. What does that mean? Well, institutions, when you think of institutions, you think of governments, you think of the civil service, you might think of the church, you might think of BT, but you think of big, solid, stable organizations. Now, they're closed. The first thing is they don't like to leak any data out of them. They're selective. They like to hire people who are like them so that they fit in. And they like to be in control of everything. That's how they behave. Now, the internet doesn't have any of those characteristics at all. It's open. Anything goes on in it. The data flows any direction. It's random. It's impossible to manage. It's impossible to control. Data is just coming at you. We're presented with hundreds of platforms, thousands of platforms, tons of data streaming at us all of the time in any order, and we have to make sense of it as humans. And it's also a very supportive environment. People generally are very supportive. I know there's some revolting human beings on the internet, but generally they are very supportive. Now, if we compare an institution with a network, if we think about the British government, we know who the Prime Minister is, we know who the Chancellor is, we may know who the Foreign Secretary is, we know the name of the Conservative Party is in power right now. We know all of that data. We know they're located in Westminster, we know that's in London, we know a great deal about them. If we look at the internet, let's see, who is the chief executive of the internet? We're not sure. Who's the chief financial officer of the internet? We're not sure. Where is it located? We're not sure. Can we buy shares in it? No. Who's in control of it? We don't know. Are we in control of it? So here we have a new form of medium, which doesn't match anything we've seen before. So I want you to empathize with yourselves, empathize with your companies, empathize with the governments who've never seen anything like this before. They've never seen a vehicle like this before. So it's very, very confusing. And it's not that institutions are wrong, it's just that's how we're all taught. We're all taught to be closed, selective, and controlling. And along comes this new thing, the internet, the World Wide Web, 23 years ago, which isn't an institution. Now, what's the difference between an institution and a network? Anybody know the difference between an institution and a network? Tough question, isn't it? Speak up. A lot easier to leave a network. You think you can leave Twitter. The difference between an institution and a network is an institution you can control, and more importantly, an institution you can kill. You can wipe it out. You can't do that with a network. You can stamp on it, annihilate it, bomb it, blow it up, destroy it, abuse it, drone it, and it's still there, as we've seen with the example of the Al-Qaeda network. Networks are not institutions. So this is making it very, very hard for people to adjust, because the way you think affects how you behave. So what we did is we devised a little questionnaire, little 10-question questionnaire that you can now fill in now on your pads or your phones or whatever, and I can tell you based on your colors how you will behave online. And that will then determine the best way for you to perform for your particular business, be that for yourself or the organization you work for. So, I'd like you to run along to this address, ima-power.com, ima-power. Put in your name, put in your email, and just fill in those 10 questions. It takes about 10 seconds. and you'll get a little answer. And it'll appear on my phone here, and I can tell you what colour you are as they start to flow in. So just go to ima-power.com and fill in your name and email. Even you can do this, Moss. Okay, so you're getting the general idea, as I'll let you finish that at your leisure. Now, the interesting thing is, each of these colours reflects a different type of behaviour in you, and therefore affects a different type of behaviour of how you should be online, how you prefer to be online. Let's start with the three greens. The greens need a lot of information. They need a lot of data. They need a lot of security. They need to know the information is stable, reliable, secure, safe, has been validated and verified. That's the environment of that particular kind of person. So anybody who's wanting to gain access to that kind of audience, if you are green, that's how you expect it to be treated online. You expect it to be treated in green. Now, if you switch to the 7 yellows, the yellows are open, they're random, they're chaotic, they're like to have lots of fun, they're all over the place, they're a mess, they'll look at everything, they'll consider anything, and they're all laughing sweetly, and they're just about able to make it through the day, the yellows, and squeeze through to next morning, and most of it is about just surviving today and getting enough sleep to make it through to the morning. So a yellow and a green are complete opposites. But you see, from an online point of view, if you've got a yellow audience, you need a yellow website. If you've got a green audience, you need a green website. Now the reds are all about results. You know, they want things to be reliable, factual. They want to be able to verify things, confirm things. They want to complete a transaction. They're like Jerry Maguire, you know, show me the money. Where's the money? They're constantly asking questions about ROI. You know, there's questions, you get ROI. Oh, all those questions are asked by reds. They're never asked by any of the other colours. The reds are giggling because they know it's them. They don't want to put their hands up because they know it's them. They're the ROI reds. So, if you look at the presentations this morning, can you spot the different colours of the presenters? Now, if we go down to the blues, how many blues did we have? We had one lady blue down there. It's just about two blues. You are allowed to put your hand up if you're a sweet little blue. So blues are very open people, but they're non-assertive. They don't like to force their point of view on anyone. They wait, they hold back. They're much more focused on community building, engagement, getting to know people, small groups of friends, small intimate groups of friends, as opposed to yellows, giant networks of friends, and a completely different behaviour online. Everything for a blue is about community and engagement and relationship. Everything for a red is about e-commerce and transactions and getting that deal done and putting in that voucher code. Well, it's a completely different website by colour. And what's happening is you have sites that suit you and sites that don't based on your colour. And this completely affects how you communicate online, completely affects how you communicate online, and the nature and the way you should channel somebody through your site. You know, a red is pushing for a transaction early on. A blue is not seeking a transaction. A blue is seeking a relationship, community engagement. A yellow is just piling out there, making a noise, you know, twittering, blogging, videos, banging stuff out there. The green's holding back and waiting for everything to be secure and verified and reliable and confirmed and factual. So they're completely different behaviours in you. Now, as a result of the way you think, that affects how you behave online. And therefore, you find sites that suit you. You find red sites or blue sites or green sites or yellow sites that suit how you behave. Now, this is very, very significant because I've been building a community in Academy for the last 15 years with my wife Penny. It's all about community, engagement, relationships, connections. Very little focus on any of the other colours. Entirely her idea, entirely her strategy. Whereas if you go to another organization, perhaps Amazon, the whole focus of Amazon is completing that transaction and getting that deal done. Very little focus on relationship, very little focus on engagement, very little focus on social media. So you've got to decide what kind of audience you're serving. Because if you're a green serving a red, you're going to find it difficult. If you're a red serving a red, you'll find it much easier. If you're a yellow serving a yellow, you'll find it much easier. So try and serve an audience that matches you. If you look at the gentleman who talked about Crucial, downloading the little memory software, the Actinic gentleman, Phil. You know, very, very transactional approach, very red approach, e-commerce system, it's all about the transaction. So think about this as you decide what strategy you want to take for what audience. And a lot depends on your product. Now the process a red would go through online, they'd think about everyone as a suspect, and then maybe a prospect, and then maybe a customer. You know, suspects, prospects, customers, funnel them down and get them transacted and get them shipped out the door, get that thing shipped out the door. That's the nature of the way a transactionally based organization thinks. That's what e-commerce is about. That's how it behaves. But if you look at the most successful websites on the internet, the most successful one is Google, and the second most successful one is Facebook. They are number one and number two. They are the Pepsi and the Coke. Google, if you like, is the Coke, and Facebook, if you like, is the Pepsi. And obviously the Pepsi doesn't taste so good since last Friday, but I'm sure Mark will get it together soon. Now, if we look at both of those sites, if we were to look at Google, what is the one thing you have to do before you can use Google? What do you have to do for it? You have to enter data. So what color would you suspect the chief executive of Google would be?
Red.
No. Green. Who said green? Yes. Larry and Sergey are both greens. This is a green-based environment. You have to give it data first. Okay? Unless you put data into it, you can't use it at all. It's impossible to use it. You have to give it some data. Now, if I log out of Facebook, and we look at Facebook, which is number 2 in the world, what do you have to do to Facebook before you can get into it? You have to join. So you've got to give it data. So the two most successful sites in the world, number 1 and number 2, you can't actually use the tool until you give them data. Number 1 and number 2. You can't use them at all. I just want you to think about that. You can't use the website at all until you give it data. Now think about that from your own strategy point of view. You can't use them at all until you give them data. One, you have to give some search data or a term or some letters. Another one, you have to fill something in your name and your details. Both of them are run by geeks. Both of them are green-based strategies. Both are 1 and 2, the GM and the Ford, the Coke and the Pepsi. Okay? Now, when you think about something like Twitter, what would you think the strategy of Twitter would be in comparison to Google or to Facebook? Similar? This lady's suggesting it's more yellow, but if we have a look at Twitter, Again, you can't use Twitter until you give it data. Now, whilst Twitter isn't as successful as Google and Facebook, it's pretty successful. It ranks 9 in the world as opposed to 1 or 2. But in every single case, all of these popular sites, you can't do anything until you give them data. I really want you to think about that. Now, the reason this is so important is because of something a Dutch guy said to me in 2004. His name is Ronald Wapiris. It was a big shock when he said it to me because it hit me like a wave. It could knock me over with a feather. But he said these words to me, and he said, "Attention is the product." You might want to write it down, because often you have to write things down to actually hear them. But attention is the product. Attention is the product. Now, right now, I have your attention while we share this information. If you like, I am the product at the moment that you are consuming. The words from my mouth, the pictures on the wall. Attention is the product. The reason I want you to think about this phrase is it dramatically affects your strategy online. People don't think of managing attention. Now, one of the things that people have been very skeptical about recently is the Facebook IPO. You know, it went out at $38 a share. It's now on the feed $31 a share. It's fake, it's phony, it's a has-been, it's gone, and all those sorts of things that all those uninformed people continue to say. But let's think about what he traded when he sold that company at the end of last Friday. What was he trading? Well, people spend on average 8 hours a month on Facebook. That's the average. Okay? Now, if we compare that with Google, that time period is 46 minutes. So people spend 46 minutes on average a month on Google and 8 hours a month on Facebook. Attention is the product. Now, I'd just like you to write down any person, any client, any supplier that you would spend 8 dedicated hours a month with. Someone you spend, you obviously don't want to spend that time with your wife based on that reaction. Someone you spend 8 dedicated hours a month with. And you see how short that list is. Just write down anybody that you would spend 8 dedicated hours a month with. Now, does anybody have more than one name? Lady at the back, almost put your hand up and I saw you. How many names do you have, madam?
I've got
3
3.
names. So 3 people that you spend more than 8 hours a month with. And do you have a relationship with Facebook? And would that be the 4th person or one of those 3? One of those 3 was included in those 3. Wow, so Facebook to you is a person. Wow, and how old are you, madam, if I may ask? 21. Wow. Anybody else have any more than 3 names? Yes, so madam, how many names do you have?
I'm not sure, but it's quite a few, but then they pay me by the hour.
Okay.
So they're clients who book me per day, and it's 8 hours in a day.
Okay, and you're dedicated to them. How many would it be in a month? Would it be 10 people in a month?
Varies. Yeah, it could be easily.
10 people. Great, fantastic. Yes, so you had 5 people. And the lady at the... Okay, so there's very few people you spend that much time with. Now, I want you to have a look at, when you go back and look at your Google Analytics on your site, have a look at the time that people spend with you, on average, in a month. And you'll see that it's in the low minutes. And you've got to ask yourself why. And then think about the fact, how are you going to get those minutes up? And you're not going to get those minutes up with special offers and deals. You're not going to get those minutes up with blogs and tweets. You're not going to get those minutes up with videos. You're not going to get those minutes up with coupons. You're going to get those minutes up through engagement. Deep, intense, intimate engagement. And you have to have a strategy for that. And you should measure your strategy's performance not based on transactions, not based on pound notes through the door, but on those minutes rising. Check your Google Analytics minutes, check them today, check them next month, check them the month after. Measure your performance by how much those engagement minutes rise, because that's your true measure. Now, I'd like you to think of an organization other than Google and other than Facebook and other than Twitter, since those are fairly familiar to all of us, but an organization that has your attention. Anybody would say this organization really has my attention. Not your employer, but an organization that might be supplying you with something. Could be Volkswagen if you drive a Golf. It could be Vodafone if you have a Vodafone cell phone. It could be Apple if you have a laptop. Just any organization that has your attention. And, sorry? TV. What organization on TV? BBC. And how much of your attention do you think they have in a month?
30 hours.
30 hours. So you maybe have 30 hours a month of BBC's attention. They have of your attention. So 30 hours a month go to BBC. And how much money do you spend with them?
That's the license fee.
The license fee, which is like £180 a year. Okay, so they're getting 360 hours out of you for £180. So 50 pence an hour is the value of your time to the BBC. Anybody else? Another brand that you engage with? eBay. How many hours would you spend with eBay in a month, sir? 6 or 7. And how much do you transact with eBay? How much do you buy and how much do you sell? Just roughly. Don't give away anything personal. 400 quid a month. That you sell or you buy? You buy and sell. Oh, so you buy something and sell it on?
No, I buy some things that I sell.
Okay, and you're spending about 6 hours a month doing that?
Yeah.
So the cost per hour is?
Yeah, so not even 100 quid an hour.
Okay, so I want you to think about attention in terms of minutes and hours in your Google Analytics. Think about it in there. Measure everything in there. Because attention is the product. This is the real issue. Now, how do I gather attention? Well, I use things like Twitter. So I like to say to people that I tweet every day. And as Zoe will know, I tweet quite a few times every day. And I just do it because I like it. But I do it every day. You can see I have Clout embedded inside the Chrome browser, so I can look at everyone's Clout score and see their level of engagement. And I think what Clout is actually measuring is the time you spend online. So if I see, let's look at that gentleman, Jim. He has a 70. And Robert, he has a 51. Stephen has a 41. I look at that as, if we take Robert as an example, he's spending 51% of his time online and 49% of his time offline. Someone like Jim is spending 70% of his time online and 30% offline. So I see Clout as a measure of time. I see Clout as a measure of engaged time online. And the higher that number, the more that person is spending online, the more time they're spending online. And that's not necessarily right, nor is it wrong. It's just what they choose to do. So when you look at your own Clout score, whatever number it is, whether it's 0 or 100, look at that from a time point of view. And then compare that with the kind of clients and suppliers you want to serve. Because that's what Clout is all about. So I say to people, tweet daily, and I say blog weekly. I put a blog up once a week. I've done over 1,000 blogs now. That's taken me over 10 years to achieve. And different thoughts come to my head as when Sarah was asking earlier on blogs. It's all based on that dog walk. If that dog walk creates something, there's a blog in there. If it doesn't, then the dogs just haven't done their job in Bourne Woods. But I do think it's important to, as Sarah rightly says, build up your blogs over time. Build up that relationship gently over time. I came across a guy in 2006 online called Lewis Gray, L-O-U-I-S-G-R-A-Y, Lewis Gray. And he posted his first blog on January the 1st, 2006. And he got his first comment in February 2007. It took him 14 months to get his first comment. And I really liked his blog, and I was recommending it to people. I thought he was a cutting-edge guy. He lives out in Silicon Valley. I thought he was a really smart fella. But no one was commenting, and I thought, well, I won't comment because no one's commenting, so maybe it's one of those places where you just read and don't comment. Anyway, when I saw that first comment after 14 months, I chipped in my comment too. And because I was his second commenter, as it were, he said, oh, why don't you come round for a coffee? That was quite an expensive coffee, to fly out there for that coffee. But I met that young guy and realised how bright he was. And I kept following and following him and following him and following him. And that young guy now runs Google+. So you just never know from blogs. You just never know from blogs what they're going to produce. So I say to people, tweet daily, blog weekly, and then the video I showed you on YouTube, I put a video up once a month. So that's a video, that's 12 videos a year, that's 52 blogs a year, that's many hundreds of tweets a year, but at least 365. And I try and do it every day. Now, how do I measure what's going on? Well, I use things like Klout. As I say, this suggests to me that I spend 69% of my time online. So I spent 31% of my time offline, if you like, running conferences, speaking, chairing things, running organisations that I support as a non-exec or as a chair. So that's how I use Klout. And you notice at the top, I've connected my Twitter, my Facebook, my Google+, all the available networks, I've connected them all. And I'm on 700 social networks, but I can't connect them all, I can only connect those ones. So if you like, I can see how I'm doing on Klout. Does it mean anything? Well, it's a helpful guide. It's a little bit like Alexa, it helps. Does it change the way I think? Not really. What else do I use to measure? I'm very fascinated by this, Empire Avenue. Empire Avenue is a game, a computer game, where you buy and sell shares in one another. It's a brilliant, brilliant idea. It's run by a Sri Lankan guy out of Alberta in Canada. His name is Dupes, @Dupes, D-U-P-S. And it's a phenomenal, phenomenal game, which I play every night for about 10 minutes, because I just like playing it. But I think one of the interesting things about this game is that it'll become a standard for introducing into your site, introducing into community sites, introducing into transactional sites to get more gamification into your engagement. And one of the things I've noticed with gamification, if you look at the minutes of use on Empire Avenue, because the amount of engagement there, it's rising very, very fast and heading towards the 60-minute mark. So if you think about the presentation we heard this morning from James when he was talking about his clients and he was talking about Moss's business, StageBeat, down in Farnborough, one of the things that came across from the presentation to me, that doing business for Moss online is actually like playing a computer game. It's actually become like a computer game, optimizing the Twitter, optimizing the Facebook, optimizing the pay-per-click, getting the blog right, getting the right day, deciding who you're going to ship to, are you not going to involve Amazon, dealing with Thomann, the German alternative. It's almost like playing a computer game. If you want to get very, very good at playing that game in a personal branding way, that is the system to use, Empire Avenue. It's this absolutely brilliant education tool. Now, notice in fourth place there, you see Google Plus at 59, that's a percentage. If you go back last year, that was naught. So Google Plus is obviously a rising force as it comes to, as Google attempt to surmount the Facebook and Twitter threat. The next thing I use is Twitterlizer. Twitterlizer gives me a measure each month of how many people I've engaged with, connected with, my reach, my connections, and if you like, gives me a Twitter score. And then after that, I use PlusClout, which gives me a measure of my performance inside Google+. Now, all of these analytical tools are just to show you how you're getting on, like a driving test, like a golf handicap, you know, a 5, a 6, a 4. But to me, the ultimate measure is the minutes on engagement in Google Analytics, because that's what they're obsessed with at Facebook and Google. That's what they talk about all the time, engaged minutes on the platform. So I want you to think about that, because to achieve the greatest result online, I believe you have to have a blue leading your engagement program. And that's what they've got at Google, and that's what they've got at Facebook. You have to have someone who's coded blue. Those people who put their hands up as blue, that lady down there and the lady who's left, that's the right person to build engagement. The greens, they build the infrastructure. The reds, they transact. The yellows, we all know from the ladies down here, these are the wild ones who do whatever they want, don't obey anything at all, and like to have fun all the time. I only recognise all of those because I'm a yellow myself. Now, another form of measure is something called Twyla, which measures what you're talking about online. Now that, if you like, gives a score of, these are the kind of things I'm talking about: Facebook, Cloudforce, Google, Instagram, IPO. So you can see it's grabbing all of my things, turning it into a newspaper, and distributing it to my followers. So all of these are measures, but to me they're just guides. They're just tools to see how you're getting on. To me, the powerhouse change is this change to Google+. I really believe this is a very, very significant platform, and I really want you to take it very, very seriously. Not ignore it, not poo-poo it, not doubt it, not be skeptical about it, all of which you probably are, because it's new. But it's Google. Now, the interesting thing here is this is not just a social network. When you spend time on this platform, and I've spent about 2,000 hours learning this platform, you start to realise that you can run your business on it. You can run your clients on it, you can run your family on it, you can run your suppliers on it, you can run your shareholders on it, you can run the whole thing on it. And I think this is the first product that I've seen which actually threatens geeks themselves. This is like the Geek P45 coming to the world of geeks. They've always been a pain in the arse to many of us for the last 30 years of our career. The difference here with Google Plus is what they've built here is they've built an intranet, they've built an extranet, they've built a social network, and they've hooked it all inside your email and hooked it all to your search. But what they've actually created is like a business-to-business matchmaking system. Now, the scary thing is when you analyse, and I've seen all the numbers from Mountain View at Google, when you analyse how much you save in terms of geek labour, servers, software licenses, and all things associated with bandwidth, security, storage, cloud, the savings to corporations are in the order of 10 to 20%. This is a big number. This is a big number. And if you're running an organisation of 5, 10, 15, 20 people, you run an organisation of 100 people, you run an organisation of 1,000 people, you can now run that whole organisation on a single platform linked into your email. Now, for the likes of Twitter and Facebook, this is scary stuff. Because we all know Google's market share in search is probably, what, 60, 70, maybe 80%. I don't know the exact number. But I don't think many of us use another search engine other than Google, at least in the UK. Yahoo has still got 25% market share in the United States. It doesn't have anywhere near that here in the UK. For all I know, Google could have more than 90% market share. Now, obviously, their plan with Google Plus is to capture all of the software business and get 90% of the software business. Now, what does that mean from your point of view? Because if you think of all the organizations that make software, like Oracle, like SAP, like Salesforce.com, and your own e-commerce organizations, once this application has an API, an application interface that you can plug into, your organization is effectively going to be a little Chrome extension, a little app that plugs into the browser, that plugs into Android. So your organization itself becomes a plugin. And I think that's quite hard to deal with in your mind, because we're starting to see quite a few organizations create great apps on mobile devices like iPad, like Android, like Instagram. Wonderful, wonderful app to play on. Does lots of great things, and you can see why Mark made such a high bid for that organisation. But I want you to think about turning your organisation, or your client's organisation if you supply them, actually turning it into an app. Actually turning the whole business into an app. And then thinking of your business as a plugin. Thinking of your business as a Chrome extension. And it just plugs in. Because when you see the likes of Salesforce.com and SAP as a Google Chrome plugin, it's quite a shock to see a giant company like that just stuffed into a browser, embedded inside Google Plus, from a giant organisation of more than 100,000 people. It's scary what's happening now, because it's beyond any of our abilities to guess and to keep up with. It's much easier for the yellows to keep up because they're in a mess all the time. The greens and the blues, they want security and stability. So it's a very destabilizing environment, the internet, because they want stability and security, and it doesn't exist online. The reds, show me the money. Show me the money. They just want to know, how do I make money out of this? So depending on your profile, depends on your behavior. One of the things I wanted you to think about in terms of your own attention is to kind of think about who has your attention now. You've written down 2 or 3 people, maybe 5, in this lady's case maybe 10 people that have your attention. I think it's a little bit different when you're serving a client for money. I'm talking about organizations or brands that have your attention. Because I want you to try and think about turning either that organization or your own organization into an app. An app on Android, an app on Apple, an app inside Chrome. And I want you to try and think of yourself as an app. What the Californians are now calling an appreneur, as you'd expect them to come up with, only in California. But I want you to think about yourself and your business as an app. I want you to think about the idea that attention is the product. And I think if you play forward the idea that attention is the product, we're moving into a world where people are going to buy and sell attention. We're going to trade in attention. Attention itself will become the marketplace. Now, against the background of all this context, you have to fit your business into it. You have to plug it into it, to this environment. And that's difficult. And also bear in mind the colour that you are will affect your ability to absorb this change, and the speed at which you absorb this change, and the approach that you take to this change. I want to encourage each and every one of you to have all 4 colours in your team or in your organisation. And if you're only a team of 1, then surround yourself with 3 peers who are the other colours, so you can listen to the other perspectives, the other angles on how to engage. Now, I wanted to finish with where is Facebook going? Many people wouldn't have read the Facebook filing, what's called the S1, which is their filing for the NASDAQ stock market. It's called an S1. I made this video about 2.5 years ago. It's called The Bank of Facebook. It's entirely made up. I just thought of it on the spot. My cameraman filmed it, and I posted it on YouTube to see what would happen. See if you can guess what happened after I posted this video. Okay, so entirely made up, point of view, just like a blog, a couple of years old. What do you think the result was of that?
Did Facebook do the thing that you said they were going to do?
Was it a fan page or did you just get likes as opposed to friends? Or just as a call?
No, nothing to do with Facebook at all. I mean, they did include in their S1 filing that their biggest market was financial services, and that's what they were going after. That's why they want the cell phone market. No, the most important thing was invited into the boardrooms of all the UK banks. And they said to me, oh, that video that you made about Facebook becoming a bank, is it true? Bear in mind, this is 2010. I said, well, I don't know, I just made it up. And they said, yeah, but is it true? And I said, well, I made it up. It's what I would do if I was Mark. So it is true then. So, well, I don't know whether it's true. If I make something up and post it on the internet, it's because it's my point of view. Anyway, so it's possible to scare the shit out of UK directors by just posting a video. The point about this is that I want you to really express, as was really expressed by all of our speakers today, but I really want you to express your difference, your uniqueness, your value, your point of view in your tweets, in your blogs, in your videos, because none of us know anymore. It's impossible to know. These are just guesses that I'm giving you. They're just gut feel guesses based on 20 years online. And I really want you, in your blogs, your videos, your tweets, whatever angle you use to capture your level of attention, to be entirely unique, belonging to you. They're your opinion. So that you capture a following, so you engage people in your point of view, people who know you, people who like you, people who want to follow you. Because the real battle is not about social networking, social media, social business, all these buzzwords. The real challenge is capturing that engagement, capturing that attention, and then monetizing it. And it's really, really hard to do. It's really, really hard to do it. And even when you see the success of a young 28-year-old guy who gets 1 billion people to use Facebook, despite that, he's criticised for not figuring out how to monetize those 1 billion people. Having got 1 billion people onto a system, to engage 1 billion people, he's then criticised for saying, well, he hasn't figured out how to monetize them, so it must be crap. That's how brutal the world is now, in what is a phenomenal achievement from the age of 19 to the age of 28. Phenomenal achievement. But from your point of view, from my point of view, from everyone else in the room point of view, keep your tweets unique. Keep your blogs unique. Keep your videos unique. They're entirely your point of view, your expression. And then people will start to know you, they'll start to like you, they'll start to follow you. And some of those people will really engage with you. You'll have captured their attention. And then the challenge is at what point you choose to monetize that attention. Because attention is the product. Thank you.